You're listening to the Beer Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. Tune in every Wednesday night at 6:30 Pacific for a dose of beer and brewing banter with your hosts, Ben Holm and Andrew Ziegler.
Hop aboard for some wit and wisdom in the Pacific Northwest, because it's always beer 30 on
The Beer Craft. Crisp, cold, and undeniably classic. Welcome back to the Beer Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast, where we make brewing as much fun as drinking. I'm Ben.
And I'm Andrew. Today we're cracking open a topic that's been brewing for centuries. The undisputed king of beers, lager.
Lagers are everywhere, whether it's an ice-cold Pilsner on a summer day or a smooth malty Vienna in the fall. They've been the world's most popular beer style for over 150 years. But here's the twist. They're not just macro brew monopolies anymore.
Nope, craft beers are getting in on the action, bringing innovation, creativity, and some serious brewing skills to lagers. So today we're deep diving into why lagers dominate the beer world, how craft brewers are shaking things up, and how you can brew a killer lager at home.
But before we raise our steins and get into history, brewing science, and the future of lagers, there's something we have to take care of first. Because no lager-fueled conversation can truly begin until Beer 30.
In the craft beer system, the people are served by two equally important groups: the brewers who make the beer and the bartenders who serve the pints. These are their stories, presented by Northwest Brewers Supply. Oh, the look on Mazda Man's face as his Walla Walla red wine woman walks into the kitchen just after the glass carboy shatters, sending a fresh batch of honey mead to glaze the white kitchen. Who knew one man could feel such fear, yet hold such hope for another trip to Northwest Brewers Supply?
Welcome back to the Beer Craft Podcast.
Yo!
B-roll.
B-roll. No, that's real. We're going for it.
It's another Wednesday, which means it's Beer 30.
We're having a lot of fun.
We are too. Are you thirsty, man?
Yes, I
Good,
am.
'cause
What did you bring?
I brought a 6-pack of something tasty.
All right.
This one comes to us today from Boundary Bay.
We like Boundary Bay.
Yeah, of course we do. This one is their lager beer.
Excellent.
Snap a little picture for the social. While I crack these bad boys open. Ooh. No technical difficulties
Well,
here
you have to
today.
grab them off that plastic sixer ring.
Yeah. You know,
Makes things difficult.
just when you want it to be.
Right.
All right, pull in.
We don't get stereo opening today.
No, we'll drink another one. It's fine. Here we go.
Oh, you're drinking another one. All right.
That's a one down. The next one.
And I brought you some special equipment today.
Yo, what's that?
Roll of paper towels.
That's awesome.
So pour away.
Pour away. Look, he keeps it in the glass because he's prepared for it today. Look at
Yes. Looking beautiful.
that. Set these empty cans aside.
Oh, it looks pretty. So
All
much
right.
carbonation.
Smells good.
Oh, yeah. Smells really good.
Ooh, there's a kind of a floral note on there.
Not much, but it's got a little sweetness to it. Yeah, very lightly hopped.
Well, that'll make. I can drink more of that.
Pretty clean.
That's
Very clean. It's got
really light.
What is the floral flavor and the
Did
aroma?
they give us anything? Lager, 4.9%. Surgeon General says some stuff.
I think that's coming from the yeast.
I would say so. I'm not getting a huge hop presence.
Not much.
A little florally, kind of mixed with that, kind of the sulfury tone. So many lagers will have.
Yep.
And that'd definitely be yeast. Certain lager strains are more prone to SO4 production.
Yeah.
And you'll get kind of those sulfury notes in a lot of lagers.
Yeah. What do you think about the body? I find the body a little high.
I would give it like a medium light.
Yeah. Medium light.
Yeah.
What do you think you think they use something in the malt bill to create the body? Some
Given the color, they
carapils or
Pilsner, I think, probably maybe a little Munich in there. for the color and body
Sweetness.
and sweetness. Yeah. But I can't confirm. They don't give us any details on the
No
can.
details. It's secret.
Well, super secret here. End of the year, Boundary Bay is supposed to be closing its doors.
Yeah.
Retiring. Sad thing.
The tear in our beers. The tear in our beers.
It's sad to see a legend go like that.
It is.
Maybe somebody out there will drop a couple $1 million and buy the building and keep the brand up. But,
keep the brand, yeah.
That'd be kind of nice to see. Boundary Bay's been in the game for quite some time. I do not have those numbers in front of me because I am not prepared. I was prepared for drinking, but not really for talking about it.
1995. No.
Yeah.
Well, it says, Boundary Bay, 1995.
Yeah. It's a hot minute. I mean, that was yesterday, right?
That was when I started drinking beer.
It's close.
No, actually, I started craft beer 1991. 91 was my first craft beer. We talked about it before.
I was
brown.
definitely later to the show. I was still sneaking whatever I could find. MGD or Bud Light or Coors Light.
I moved to Washington in 91 from Arizona.
Yeah.
And the beer scene in Arizona there was nothing really.
Still a little behind the curve.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's still
we are spoiled here on the West
beer.
Coast. Washington.
We're lucky, and I don't understand why that the craft beer didn't take off as much. I mean, you can go to Scottsdale, and they've got the restaurants and breweries, and then you can go downtown. They have some, Tempe. They have some, but just in other spread out into
it's
places,
not like
it's very sparse.
It's not like there's a downtown craft beer region. You can go to Bellingham and you can't go four blocks in any direction without running into something.
Brewery. And my mom lives in the brewery desert there.
the no beer zone.
Yeah, there's no breweries. There's one brewery 8 miles away or something.
Lame.
Yeah.
Lame, and it's hot. So screw that noise. No beer and 110 to 114 degree weather.
Well, she does live next to the Glendale Stadium, the Cardinal Stadium. So there may be a place in there now. I haven't. The only time I've been to Arizona lately was last Christmas. Yeah. So I didn't really go out to any breweries. I didn't really go out to any beers. I was occupied with other things.
Yeah, the holidays, right?
Well, there's not very many beer drinkers there in my family.
Yeah.
Nobody. My nephew would go out for a beer, but he'd rather have a cocktail. So there's really nobody I can go and, hey, let's go grab a beer here. Show me what you like, about this brewery over here.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And it's been so long that my friends from the beer club, this was pre-Facebook. I never got, it's old email addresses, so I never stayed in touch.
To the into the wind.
Except for Joe Bob.
Hey, Joe Bob.
Hey, Joe Bob, if you're ever listening, big old shout out. He and I knew each other from Brewmeisters Anonymous Homebrew Club in Phoenix.
Nice.
It was awesome. He was a big player. He brewed at Bandersnatch Brewery.
That's a name.
In Tempe. Yeah.
Bandersnatch. You know where that comes from?
Nope.
No. That's a mouthful.
idea.
It's a mouthful.
It's probably some Irish or Scottish, I would assume.
Yeah. Drink some more beer.
But,
My dad lives in Buckeye. Just
Buckeye?
just east there of Phoenix proper.
Well, why don't we arrange a brewery tour?
We should, because my dad keeps bugging me to get my butt down there. It's been a couple of seasons. I try to go when it's not as hot, and then I run out of year.
That's coming up.
Yeah,
that's
coming up.
In 2
April.
weeks.
yeah.
It's already sunny.
They'll
and
get their
warm.
first 100-degree day in April,
right,
or something. Which I'm so cold right now. I'd do it.
Yeah, let's go.
It feels like good. Well, I'm still broke from Hawaii, so.
All right.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to be my bitch then, and I'll pay for it.
Yeah, being up here in the cold, I'm just over it.
You need a tan. I need a tan as well.
Well, yeah, I get a farmer's tan. It's kind of a two-tone race car finish.
Mm-hmm.
I just need some like Go Faster racing stripes on them, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So, what do we think of the beer? Well, it's easy drinking. It's not gonna, it's not gonna offend anybody. That's for sure. I like it. It's clean. It's crisp. It's better than Coors.
4.9 on the alcohol.
So you can drink 4 more.
ABV. It's independent brewery.
Nothing like a cold one to get these conversations flowing.
That's
right, Andrew?
I love it.
But speaking of cold ones,
Nice segue over there.
I try. But seriously, let's talk about the ultimate cold one, lagers. It's a beer that's, man, it's everywhere. Backyard barbecues, ballparks, dive bars, high-end craft breweries.
This is the newest, the newest part of the God, what are the newest commercials? Instead of Bud Light, it's Ultra. I'll race you for an Ultra.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Whatever it is.
I would never run or walk in any direction.
But like, it's the big thing, pickleball, whatever. But we tend to take lagers for granted, though. I mean, I certainly would take an Ultra for granted.
You take it away from me, and you can grant it permission to leave.
But it is one of the most fascinating styles to brew, right? I mean, it's kind of mystique. There's a rich history behind it, wild science behind the yeast, and now craft brewers are reinventing what a lager can be.
So in this episode, we're going to break it down. If lagers are the king of beers, why do they dominate the market? How can you brew one of your very own crisp, clean, refreshing lagers right in your own home?
All right, but first let's take a quick break, grab a fresh pint, and we'll be right back.
In the home brewing system, beer, wine, cider, and mead are made by brewers. These are their stories, presented by Northwest Brewer Supply. A man in a well-used Mazda pickup watches as a magician pulls an unlimited number of items out of a magic hat. Thinking to himself, he makes a wish that he had one of those hats so he would never run out of beer again. But there's no such thing as magic, only another trip to Northwest Brewer Supply.
All right, let's jump right into it. We're talking about lagers today, where they come from, how they evolved, and why they took over the world. And trust me, it's a wild ride.
Well, people think lagers are just light, crisp, easy drinking beers, but their history goes back hundreds of years and is shaped by everything from climate, science, war, and even immigration.
So let's start at the beginning. The Middle Ages. Now picture this, 14th century Bavaria. We're talking about medieval Germany, long before refrigeration, when brewing was seasonal.
The big problem in the 14th century was that beer spoiled in warmer months.
Exactly. Brewers started storing their beer in cold caves and cellars, usually deep underground. They didn't fully understand the science yet, but they knew that beer lasted longer and tasted better when cold.
And that's right. Right there is how lagering started. We can trace the word lager to lagern, a German word for store.
And here's the crazy part. This storage method did more than keep beer fresh. Over time, something unique happened.
Yep. Let's talk about yeast, because that's where the magic happens.
So most beers then were fermented with Saccharomyces cerevisiae, your standard ale yeast. It likes warmer temperatures. Think 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 to 21 degrees Celsius for those of you anywhere else in the world. And those yeasts, they produce a lot of fruity esters and spicy phenols.
When brewers stored their beer in cold caves, a cold-tolerant yeast strain bred with a warm-tolerant strain, creating a new hybrid. Better suited to the conditions, this hybrid quickly took over.
That's right. We know this yeast was a hybrid of an ale yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, And the other one, a wild cold-tolerant yeast called Saccharomyces eubayanus, which, fun fact, was only discovered in 2011 in Patagonia. And I say only discovered, I mean like its origin stories.
The origins? Patagonia?
Were discovered in 2011 Patagonia. Yeah,
Wow.
crazy.
South America. That's down there. And that's kind of extreme.
Yeah. They think maybe like Silk Roads, the Silk Trading Roads or something like that was involved. They're not really sure exactly how a Patagonian wild yeast got up into Germany. But they think this Saccharomyces eubayanus may have traveled on the trade routes hundreds of years ago, probably on some ships carrying spices or goods. But that research continues and is still a bit of a historical mystery. And just like that, lager beer was born.
Beer. Right on. So we've got lager yeast doing its thing. And when did lagers take over in Germany?
So by the 1500s, lagers were becoming a dominant style, and Bavaria was sort of the epicenter.
Yeah, Bavarian brewers perfected the techniques, and by the 1600s, lager was the standard beer across southern Germany.
And not just Bavaria. By the 1800s, a new style called Pilsner was invented in Bohemia. It's a modern-day Czech Republic. That beer, which took everything people loved about lager and made it even crisper, lighter, more golden.
Oh, and that's the birth of what is probably the most famous lager style in the world, the Pilsner.
So it's right about this point, lager goes global, thanks to German immigration.
Yes. In the 19th century, Germany was going through massive political and economic upheaval. After the failed revolutions of 1848, hundreds and thousands of Germans fled to America.
And they brought their brewing skills with them.
That's right. By the 1850s and the 1860s, German brewers were setting up and shop in Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Chicago.
Ever heard of a little company called Anheuser-Busch?
No.
Yeah, it's just a small one.
Just a small brewery.
During this time, we get the big names in American brewing. We got Anheuser-Busch, Pabst, Schlitz, Miller. All of them were founded by German immigrants who made lagers.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Americans loved lagers.
Clean, crisp, easy drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect for mass production and perfect for a hot summer day.
That's right. So let's fast forward a bit, because Prohibition in the 1920s nearly killed the beer industry in America.
Yeah, breweries either shut down or survived by making near beer, malt extracts, or soda. However, when Prohibition ended in 1933, the survivors had to scale up big time.
So this is kind of like the first little home brew shops. So, this is probably what created the rise of the American light lager.
Breweries started using adjuncts like corn and rice that made the beer lighter, cheaper, and more drinkable for mass audience. I imagine the emphasis was on cheaper.
Yeah, cheaper was Budweiser, Coors and Miller Lite. Yep, those beers would go on to dominate the U.S. market for decades. I think pretty much got the market.
They got the dominant
lager
position.
Dominant lager.
80% of the marketplace, I think. Yeah. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to the 1980s and 90s, and craft beer comes along with a mission to destroy mass-marketed lagers.
Craft beer was all about bold, flavorful ales. I mean, IPAs, stouts, Belgian styles. Lagers were seen as boring and corporate.
But now, you see, the tide is turning, and craft lagers are making waves in the beer world.
100%. Sales of Pilsners and pale lagers are up 18%. They're the fastest growing segment in craft beer.
And that brings us up to today. Lagers are getting more and more loved than ever, and we're seeing some truly incredible truly incredible takes on the style.
Oh, excuse.
B-roll.
Yeah.
Burp roll.
I need that on a like a sound effects.
Yeah, just like a burp button.
Yeah, I have that. I have that MIDI. I have it's a Roland MIDI.
Yeah.
If I can figure out how to hook it up to this, I'd be a genius. But who knows? So coming up next, well, we'll be talking about why lagers dominate the beer market and how you can brew your own.
All right. So we know where lagers came from now, from cold cellars of Bavaria to mass production breweries in America. But now we need to answer the big question. Why do lagers still dominate the beer market today?
Well, let's be real. Outside the West Coast, if you walk into a gas station, grocery store, stadium, 80% of the beer on the shelf is going to be a lager.
More than 80. I think globally lager accounts for nearly 90% of all beer sales.
Well, these stats were wrong then.
Well, I mean, 80% in America, but 90% globally.
Oh, I got it. Oh, that's right. Math.
It's a thing.
Which is insane when you think about it, because craft beer has been growing like crazy over the last 30 years. I mean, ever since I've been drinking it, it's just keeps going. I can't believe that we don't have much more of a dominant stance.
We're trying hard.
They're
trying hard, man.
Lagers are running the world still.
Yeah. So why did they take over? Why is it still king, and will it ever be dethroned? Let's start with the obvious. Lagers are approachable.
Yeah. There's a reason why when someone first tries a beer, it's probably a lager. I mean, my first beer was Miller High Life, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, like my full beer that I drank.
Miller Genuine Draft for me. I mean, think about the first beer you had. Maybe it was a Budweiser, Coors, Heineken, Corona.
It's because lagers are simple, clean, and easy drinking. They're low in bitterness, and they don't have extreme flavors, and they're just crisp and refreshing.
They don't hit you in the face with a bitterness like an IPA or roastiness like a stout. They're not sours.
It's that crushability factor. You can slam a lager at a barbecue or three, a baseball game or a wedding, and you're not getting overwhelmed by a ton of hops or dark malts.
So that's it.
Crushable.
That's why light lagers like Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light were so massively successful. They are an easy gateway beer.
Oh, yeah. Always have been. So we've established that lagers are easy to drink, but they're also easy to sell because they're efficient to make.
Yeah, here's something a lot of people don't think about. Lager is actually cheaper to produce on a mass scale than most ales.
Excuse me, I had to get a drink. Right, well, ales, I mean, especially IPAs require a ton of hops, and hops are expensive.
So most lagers, they use fewer hops and instead focus a bit on the malt character.
Yeah, plus the yeast used in the lagers, Saccharomyces pastorianus, is incredibly consistent. It ferments clean, meaning that there's less chance of off flavors.
And when you're running a massive brewery, consistency is everything.
Yep, Budweiser in St. Louis, Missouri, has to taste exactly the same as Budweiser in Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah, and that level of consistency is what's kept lagers dominant. Because no matter where you're in the world, a Heineken is a Heineken.
Heineken is a Heineken. And have you ever been at? I took a tour of the Heineken or the Anheuser-Busch Brewery.
I've never done that one.
And in the end, they had a tasting room where people would come to work, and that's their job, is to taste the batches of beer and to get the correct blend out of their vessels that they had. I think they take their base beer. What would you call it? The sample, and then taste the others to
like a triangle test kind of thing. Pick the odd one. Kind of testing, or they just trying
No, they're trying to get the flavor correct.
Right.
So they taste what's in the vats, and they taste the sample Budweiser, and then they taste of the vats, and they give a percentage. Okay, we need to put this in that.
Oh, they do a little blend-a-thon.
Blend-a-thon type, yeah. I mean, that's for real.
Winemakers and whiskey makers have been doing that.
Can you imagine having that job?
Yeah.
Going into work?
It's not a bad gig. I mean, I get to drink at work. It's pretty good.
I think it would need to be something like I would come in first thing in the morning and do. You know?
Wouldn't want to do much afterwards.
Nope.
That's for sure.
All right, let's get on to cold fermentation. So now, the one challenge with lagers is they take longer to ferment than ales.
Yeah, ale yeast, it's going to ferment at warm temperatures, around 65, 75, or 18 to 24, depending on the strain, which means ales can be brewed and ready in say 2 to 3 weeks on a commercial scale.
Easy. Lagers, on the other hand, ferment at a colder temperature, around 48 to 55 Fahrenheit, 9 to 13 C, which means they take a little bit longer.
Typically, and by tradition, lagers can take 6 to 8 weeks to mature.
Yeah, but here's where things have changed. Modern brewing techniques have sped up the lagering process.
Yeah, there's a speed lager method, and that's threatening to change the game.
Instead of waiting 6 weeks, brewers can now ramp up a temperature during fermentation, finishing a lager in under 3 weeks.
So that means breweries can turn around lagers almost as fast as ales, which makes them more attractive to produce. But lager didn't just dominate because of its taste or efficiency.
Nope. Lager is number one because of marketing.
Think about it. Brands like Budweiser, Coors, Miller, Heineken have spent billions of dollars on advertising over the last century.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most favorite beer commercials of all time.
the Budweiser what's up? What's up?
They did a version of that at the Super Bowl, but it wasn't What's Up, and it wasn't Budweiser. It was something else, and everybody was on the phone or something going, ah. I can't remember what it was kind of dumb, but it was kind of cool because it got a little nostalgic.
Sure.
Yeah, so let's not forget the Budweisers,
Speaking of nostalgia,
Clydesdales, Coors Light Silver Bullet, Miller Life's Tastes Great Less Filling. They even had a dog selling beer.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Spuds McKenzie.
Spuds McKenzie.
Wait a minute. Ribbit.
Oh, sure.
Bud.
Yeah.
Why? Zer.
Or Rainier beer.
Yeah.
For those who are really old.
Yeah, that was cool. Rainy.
So yeah, the reason lagers are everywhere is because they've been drilled into our brains through decades upon decades of advertising.
That's right, man. You walk into a beer and you're just seeing all these Bud, Millers, Coors sign. It's just instinctual to order it because, I mean, it's right there in your face. Branding power.
Yeah. So the final question, will lagers ever lose their crown?
No.
Short answer right there.
They're just too easy. Yeah. Too easy to drink.
They're going to outspend craft every day. Craft beer is growing, but even craft breweries now are making lagers.
Uh-oh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing Pilsners, Helles, Mexican lagers, and Vienna lagers coming out of craft breweries everywhere. I think one of our most common as of late is the Mexican lager.
Oh man, I have had a host of new Mexican lagers. Chuckanut's Mexi lager. Forget it. Give me a diving board, man. I'm head first into that vat.
Yep, it's
that
good.
Shit is good. So at the end of the day, people love lagers. They're clean. They're easy drinking. They pair well with anything. They've been branded to hell.
Well, pair with anything, they do.
Yeah.
And now that these fast lagering methods exist, there's even less reason for brewers to ignore them.
So we'll wrap it up there. Lagers still number one and not going to go anywhere. Coming up next, we're going to give you some tips on brewing your own lagers at home.
All right.
But first, I got to get another beer.
We're going to get another beer?
Or two.
Really?
It's Wednesday, for crying out loud.
All right, maybe we should take a break?
We should take a break? Yeah. Take a little, go pay some bills.
Pay some bills. Give some love. All right. I love that. That is grand.
Hear the bubbles.
I'm not putting my ear in my microphone. Thank you for joining us on Beercraft. Be right back.
There we go.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to pour this before we go to a commercial.
Oh, that's right. Well done.
In the craft beer system, the people are served by two equally important groups: the brewers who make the beer and the bartenders who serve the pints. These are their stories, presented by Northwest Brewers Supply. Mazda Man's beer ran out by the end of the big game. Mazda Man knows the best way to run out of beer is by drinking it. He also knows the best way to avoid such a scenario is by shopping at Northwest Brewers Supply today.
Welcome back to the Beer Craft. All right, we've talked about how lagers took over the world. Now it's time for the fun part, brewing your own lager.
Yep. I know homebrewers shy away from lagers because they think they're a little bit complicated. And I know I did. I know I did for a long time.
Complicated. So here's the truth on that. Lagers, they're not hard to brew. They just tend to take a little bit more patience.
Exactly. If you brew with an ale, I mean, you can brew with a lager. You just need to follow a few extra steps.
The payoff, you got that clean, crisp, refreshing beer that tastes just as good, if not better, than anything you buy at the store.
It will be. So let's break it down. Everything you need to know to brew your first lager at home.
First things first, what kind of lager do you want to brew?
Well, because not all lagers are the same. You've got Pilsners, crispy, hoppy, golden.
Sounds good to me.
Helles. A light, softer, more malty, but still drinkable.
You've also got Vienna lagers. You got a little malty action, a little toasty, amber colored.
Yeah. Yep. Dortmunder.
Oh,
I like
love
Dortmunder.
Dortmunder.
A soft balance between the malt and the hop bitterness, a distinct minerally finish.
You got your dark lagers. You got Schwarzbier, Dunkels, Baltic Porters. Those are like a little roasty action.
Yep. And then we've got the Mexican lagers.
Ooh, light, refreshing, often brewed with corn.
Yep.
Corn
That's
does
distinct.
ferment. Yeah. Corn ferments really well, and low protein is going to help improve clarity. We like it.
It's got a unique flavor,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
Aroma.
If you're just starting out, I'd recommend something simple, a Helles or a Mexican lager.
Yeah, both are pretty forgiving styles. They're both light. They don't require as much hop balance, and they don't require the perfect clarity like a Pilsner does.
If you love maltier beers, a Vienna lager, fantastic choice.
Oh, yeah.
Smooth and toasty, beautiful amber color. Fucking love those beers.
So some essential equipment for brewing lagers. Once you picked your style, let's discuss this equipment.
If you brewed ales before, you've got most everything you need. There's one big difference, and that's you're gonna need temperature control for your fermentation.
Yeah, because the yeast, the lager yeast, ferments cold at around 48 to 55 degree Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, and that temperature range is a noodly one. It's warmer than your refrigerator can handle, but it's too cold for your house to stick around in. So you're going to want a temperature controlled fermentation chamber. This could be a fridge with an external temp controller, making a dedicated fermentation chamber. You could get by with a cold basement if it stays around 50 degrees. If you got a cellar or something like that, that'd work. Definitely going to need a hydrometer.
Oh, yeah.
Want to monitor that
monitor
fermentation. Yeah.
Yep, and you need a decent yeast starter.
Yeah, lager fermentations need more yeast than ales. So you can either grow the yeast up in a starter or purchase extra packs of yeast.
Yeah, give it a couple packs.
Yeah.
The temperature control is a big one. If you don't have a way to control the temperature, brewing a lager can be tricky. But don't worry, we've got some tips for you later.
All right, let's talk about ingredients. You got some choices on that front.
Well, lagers don't hide flaws like an IPA or a stout. So if something's off, you're going to taste it.
That means you're going to need some quality ingredients.
Yep.
Malt, you're going to want to use a Pilsner malt for most lagers. For dark lagers, you can add some Vienna or Munich malt.
Yep. Stick to noble hops. You want probably a Saaz, Hallertau, Tettnang, or a Spalt.
Yeah. Yeast, you could go for white yeast 2124, Bohemian Lager, Saft Lager, W3470, or White Labs WLP 830 would be excellent choices.
And Ben will hook you up.
I gotcha.
Yep. If you're making a Mexican lager, add a little flaked maize to keep it a little lighter and crispy.
And if you don't have temp control, there is a secret weapon. And that's Kvike yeast. This is a Norwegian strain. There's a couple of them out there. One of them is called Lutra, and it produces a clean, crisp beer without a lot of esters or phenol development. It can handle 90-degree fermentation. Oh, and it's stupid fast. We're talking like 3-4 days. Beer's done.
Beer's done.
Yeah, get out the way, drink it. Yeah.
all day long. Ferments like a lager at the ale temperatures and even higher. Without the, very clean. So, Ben, mastering lager fermentation is a hard one.
When we've got the good ingredients, the most important step is going to be fermentation.
Fermenters are where most people mess up. If your fermentation temperature swing is too much, you'll get off flavors like sulfur or diacetyl.
Yeah, or fruity esters like banana. So we talked about it earlier, and we mentioned kind of a speed method. So here's the plan for that. You're going to pitch cold. You're going to chill your wort to 48 to 50 degrees. That's 10 degrees Celsius. Before you're going to add your yeast.
Right. Can we talk about that a second?
Sure.
Now, so I'm going to brew. I'm gonna send through my chiller, and now I'm going to get at maybe 60 degrees.
Well, if you can get colder, that works too.
If I'm brewing in Arizona, I'm going to get it at 80 degrees. So I'm gonna put this into my temperature controlled chamber.
Cool the rest of the way down the way. Yeah.
Before I put my yeast in
can.
there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you want to whatever you have to do to get it cold, do that.
Right. Okay.
Next step is going to ferment it slow, keeping it cold, 48 to 55 degrees, or 9 to 13 Celsius, until you've reached 50% attenuation. How long this takes is really going to depend on the gravity of your beer. For instance, a 1080 Doppelbock is going to take longer to get to 50% than a 1040 Pilsner.
Yeah, fermenting more.
So you're going to monitor that with your
sugars out
hydrometer.
there.
You're going to float your hydrometer in there, take a sample, see where it's at, and try to get it at 50, at the halfway mark.
Yeah. Now we have a diacetyl rest. To finish fermenting and clean off those off flavors like diacetyl, we do a diacetyl rest at an ambient temperature to 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 C. And we do this for a duration of 4 to 10 days. The gravity will also affect this, so...
Yeah, there's a couple ways to do that. In that, the easy way is just crank up the dial on your temperature controller to 68 degrees and leave it. Another method, it takes a little more hands-on, but you're going to turn it up incrementally for over the course of a couple days to ramp up to that temperature. Either way you do it, I think is going to be okay.
What's better? Is it personal preference?
I think it's, some of the research I saw, in some side-by-sides from the Brewlosophy podcast, or Brewlosophy blog, his experiment in his speed brewing, he had done it both ways, and all those beers came out just fine.
Just fine. I would imagine it would be a little bit like a yeast stress thing. And then maybe your yeast won't clean up a little bit in the end before they go back dormant. Maybe.
You want to get them into that.
You
want to get them into that 68 degrees so they can handle that diacetyl and take care of that.
Right,
so.
But they're not going to be eating like the sugar, right?
Well, as you warm it up, they're going to get more aggressive. They're going to start.
Right, but the sugar should be gone.
Right, you've taken care of the first half of them. Yeah. The next step on that list is cold crash time. You're going to be dropping the temperature on that to 30 to 32 degrees. Now, beer's not going to freeze necessarily. Get it as cold as you can, and you can let it hang out there for like 3 to 5 days. You do need to watch out for, right here, I'm going to make a note, you need to watch out for suck back. As you drop the temperature in your fermenter, the density of the liquid's going to change, and you can actually draw a vacuum and empty out your airlock right into your beer. So if you're worried about that, you can fill it with vodka, and then it only sucks the vodka in there, and who cares? I have stretched a CO2 filled balloon over my airlock so that it's sucking in carbon dioxide instead of ambient oxygen. Either way, just watch out for that. You don't want it to suck it full of, suck the airlock. Suck it. I just said suck it again. You don't want to empty the airlock into your beer if you can avoid it. After that, it is time to package the beer.
Time to package. Lagering process. And the secret to a clean beer is waiting for the fermentation to get done. Ferment it at 48 to 55 degrees. And we're going to ferment it until it's about halfway to our attenuation.
Yeah. And then you're going to raise the temperature for that diacetyl.
And we raise it for 4 days. And are we going to wait at that point for that fermentation to be complete?
In that timeline, in that 4 to 10 day timeline at 68 degrees, 100% of that sugar should go. And past that, then we're cold crashing.
Okay, so now we've got our fermentation complete. We've done our diacetyl rest.
Now we
Bam.
lager
Now
it.
we're going to
now
lager
we're going
it.
to lager it. And lagering, what's lagering mean?
Lager means just storing the beer cold for a few weeks, right?
Yeah, those traditional lagers, remember those back in Bavaria, they were stored in cold caves for months. But you don't have to wait that long.
No.
That classic method took about 4 to 6 weeks. In a fast lager,
Yep.
go ahead and cold crash that
Cold crash 5 days.
for about 5 days at 32 degrees. Then keg it and carbonate it.
Add some gelatin if you want to speed up the clearing process, and maybe
gelatin
if you don't have an extra couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we're speed lagering,
Yep.
so gelatin is going to...
Going to clear it up quickly. So this fast method works shockingly well. So I've done it, and we couldn't taste the difference.
Yeah,
Whether it's
they made some damn fine lager-like beers that I drank the hell out of before I had time to worry about, how they stack up to a traditional pilsner.
One of the only things that I've encountered would be the clarity. Issue.
That's where your gelatin is kind of thing. Yeah,
Gelatin's good for that. I usually didn't use that much because I'm a German, and so
you like that Reinheitsgebot, but
I like the Reinheitsgebot, and so I just lager it a little longer.
You can be patient then.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lagered my Oktoberfest, and it the clarity came through as quick as it needed to. Past that, some of the qualitative differences in like a 6-month-old lagered Oktoberfest were really more of about like the maturity of that beer.
Yeah.
All those flavors really, really came together. You can do it fast, and no one's gonna beat you over the head about making a lager in 3 weeks. But you can also do it nice and slow because you're a home brewer and you've got nothing but time. Which is pretty cool. Packaging and serving options. What to do about that?
Our last step, packaging.
So if you keg, you can force carbonate that at 10 psi for 5 to 7 days. You can't over carbonate it doing that.
Nope, not at 10.
Nope.
So if you're bottling, you'll need to add priming sugar and wait. We're gonna wait a couple weeks, and
we should probably mention how much sugar we want to use.
do we want to use a little less since we're gonna maybe plan on lagering it a little longer in the bottle?
Well, the carbonation is a function of sugar, so the duration doesn't really come into play. So how much priming sugar to use for 5 gallons, that kind of depends on your sugar source. 5 ounces of dextrose will get you enough bubbles for 2.3 volumes of CO2. If you want to get really, really noodly, I suggest you get on the web and look up a priming sugar calculator, and we'll put a link in the show notes.
Why don't we have a priming bottling? We need a bottling episode.
We might do a bottling episode
coming soon.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. But priming sugar calculator is going to ask you a few questions. It's going to ask you the volume of your beer. It's going to ask you the temperature you fermented it at, and how much CO2 do you want. And it's going to ask you how many volumes of CO2 do you want. So you tell it all that information. It's going to spit out how much corn sugar to use, how much honey to use, how much DME you would use, how much table sugar can you use, demerara sugar, molasses, treacle. Like, the list is long of different fermentable sugars that you could. And it'll tell you how much of each one of those you should use, because each of those sugar types has a different amount of sugar by weight. So it might be 5 ounces of corn sugar, but it might be 5.3 ounces of table sugar.
How about flavor? Does it affect flavors?
At these small amounts, and we're talking 5 ounces in 5 gallons, I don't imagine there's appreciable differences in priming sugar.
Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I've never primed with molasses, and that is an option I've seen. So I don't know if it really.
Dude, like Belgian. What a Belgian strong caged
With
Primed with molasses.
Yeah.
Said 8 months.
So you've got it bottled or kegged, you've got it carbonated, and now you're going to serve it. I like to use a proper glass, a Pilsner glass, for those tall.
Is that the one that's shaped like a beer can?
The Pilsner glass, it is like a long tapered cylinder. They're usually about 12 to 14 inches tall.
Similar to a Kolsch Stange.
Stange is short at
short 8 ounces.
Yeah,
I know,
short
it's
8
a little
ounces.
shorty.
Yeah.
Also pills.
But you
pills,
could pour it into a Stein if you wanted to.
Stein.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like the clay beer mugs. They're opaque. They're kind of hefty. They feel good. I like to use the appropriate glass if I have them. Just kind of sets it apart. Like I'm
Makes it special.
yeah. It should
Hey,
be
we're drinking
part
a
ritual. Part
Pilsner
ritual
here.
to drink your homebrew.
All right. Well, let it warm up slightly after you pour it. Ice cold beer numbs those taste buds, so you're not going to be able to taste much of it. So here's a hallmark quality of beer. It should taste good at any temperature.
And if you want to know what we're talking about here, go find a Coors Light and let that thing warm up a bit, and you'll see just how crappy it tastes. Some of those beers don't taste great. Don't taste real great.
Not
at
at
warm
all.
temperatures.
Not at all.
So, final thoughts on brewing a lager. Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Takes a little patience, but once you taste that crisp, clean, homemade lager, it's always worth it.
So coming up next, we're going to wrap things up with our final thoughts on the future of lagers and where craft brewing is headed next.
All right.
So take another little ad break, and we're going to come right back right here on the Beer Craft.
Ten Reasons to Homebrew by Northwest Brewer Supply. Part 2.
Number 7. Making beer is a lot like having kids. Kids who don't talk back, beg for money, and beer will gladly get you wasted. Number 6. Unlimited beer supply for the apocalypse, just in case. Number 5. Finally, a legitimate reason to buy giant vats and tubes without ending up on a government watch list. Number 4. Hops are a plant, so technically, it's gardening.
Straight from the home office in Burlington, it's another Top 10 with Northwest Brewer Supply.
All right. We have talked about some lagers, why they dominate, how to brew them, but now we're looking ahead.
Yeah, because the beer world is always evolving, and now lagers are making a serious comeback.
Which is wild, because for years, craft beer was all about the ales, the hazy IPAs, the barrel-aged stouts, sours.
Yep, it felt like the lagers were the forgotten style. Well, they're either macro-brewed light lagers or old-school German imports.
But this is changing. Craft breweries are embracing lagers once again. They're doing it in a way that's a little more interesting than just another light beer.
Yep, the rise of craft lagers. So let's talk about numbers for a second. Pilsner sales grew 18.6% last year. That's faster than IPA sales, which grew 12.5%.
Yeah, overall, the pale lagers, they're up 18, making them the fastest growing beer category.
It tells us one thing. People want lagers.
And I think there's a few reasons for that. We talked about one early, drinkability.
Yep. People love how the crisp and smooth, easy drinking it is.
Yeah, I think another one's nostalgia. I think the beer you grew up on or your father's favorite sociable pop can have a strong emotional connection.
Oh, it's always those commercials, the marketability from that. Sensationality. Most craft beer or most craft lagers are in the 4 to 5 ABV range, so you can have a few of them.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of beer fatigue in the marketplace right now. A lot of craft beer drinkers are a little burned on overly hoppy IPAs or pastry stouts or milkshake
sweet,
IPAs. All the weirdo IPAs that are out there right now.
Brewing skills like lagers take precision, and brewers love the challenge of making a perfectly clean beer. I know I do.
Yeah.
I think that last one is huge. When craft beer first exploded, brewers wanted to make bold, extreme flavors, the hoppiest, the boldest, the booziest, the most intense.
Yeah, and I think the craft sector has matured a little bit, and brewers are starting to realize how hard it is to make a great lager.
A great session.
Yeah.
Yep. So, what's the next big thing in lagers?
I think we're going to see a lot more variety. Right now, Most craft lagers are pilsners, Helles, Muxie lagers, but I think they're going to start seeing a little more creativity in this sector.
Yeah, we're already seeing it. Here are some lager trends I think we'll see more of, like IPLs, basically hoppier, crispier,
also
cleaner.
known as a cold IPA.
Yep. Oh, a cold IPA?
Yeah,
That's kind of a weird name for it. I like IPL.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense because India Pale Lager doesn't make any sense.
None of it does. But like cold fermented, hoppier, hop forward beers, that's a thing. I mean, the Pilsner was hop forward for crying out loud.
Yeah, the Pilsner has enough IBU in it to be a hop.
So your dry hop Pilsners, like think Italian Pilsners, they have a history of dry hopping those beers.
Yep, they're still smooth and they have modern hop aromas.
I'm looking forward to seeing some barrel-aged lagers. So maybe a little whiskey barrel kind of thing on certain styles. I think some of your darker, like a barrel-aged Schwartz beer makes me drool a little bit. Done that?
That does kind of sound good. But the only thing is, I don't know how the lighter beers barrel age.
But I think it'll take some experimentation.
Okay, the first time I barrel aged,
So if you make one, bring it.
My stout, I used a Woodinville whiskey barrel years ago, and I got it just right then, right after they emptied it.
Fresh dump.
And
that's terrible. That's terrible to say on
a fresh dump.
A freshly dumped barrel of whiskey. Whiskey barrel. Yeah.
And it took 6 days in the barrel for that for that stout to get as much whiskey as I wanted.
Oh man, a fresh one like that.
So
it doesn't take long.
Yeah, a nice lager like that in a whiskey barrel. Ooh.
I think yeast experimentation is going to be big. The most popular lager strain by far is 3470, the Weinsteffen strain. Comes out of Hofbrauhaus, and it's about as reliable as they come.
Clean fermentation, damn near guaranteed performance. But there was a side effect. The wide adoption of the yeast left a lot of other yeast by the wayside, and those strains are functionally extinct.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movement in the yeast labs and craft sector to begin experimentation and with the novel yeast strains to produce different flavors. So there's some hope.
Yeah. One such strain I ran into and I got to brew with was Lallemand Nova Lager. It's another hybrid strain of Saccharomyces and Saccharomyces eubayanus. It's got a unique flavor profile. Low VDK diacetyl producer, so it also inhibits hydrogen sulfide production, H2S, reduces those off flavors, and decreases production time.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I love seeing that kind of innovation. For a long time, people thought lagers were just one thing, but I think the brewers are out there to prove there's a lot more to explore.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the big question. Which macro lagers like Budweiser, Miller's, Coors, will they ever lose their dominance?
You know, we said it earlier in the show today. No, I don't think they will. Again, it's going to boil down to marketing. Those guys can outspend just about everybody.
I agree. Craft beer is growing, but macro is still the king, and macro still has the dollars behind them.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. Bud Light's still the number one. Bud Light and Modelo are still the number one selling beers out there at like $6.8 billion every year.
It's crazy.
So much money.
And as much as craft beers love to dunk on light beers, light lagers, they're not going anywhere.
Nope. Because at the end of the day, I think most people just want a simple beer. Something they can crush at a barbecue, a football game, church, whatever.
Exactly. Macro beers are cheap, easy to drink, and they are everywhere. That's a hard combo to beat.
Yeah. So, can craft lagers break through, though? Because I think this is where things are interesting. Craft breweries are definitely trying to take a piece of that light lager market.
Yeah, I think so. We've seen a ton of craft breweries have light lagers popping up. Firestone Walker 805 Cerveza. Montucky Cold Snacks, Freem, Boundary Bay,
which we drank tonight.
We did, Boundary Bay. Larrabee Cold Lager.
Have you had Larrabee Lager?
Larrabee Lager, I've not had Larrabee Lager.
We gotta go.
Where's that from?
Bellingham.
from Burlington.
Yeah, they're up by Bellis Fair Mall.
Okay.
Fantastic beer.
You got cold beer and La Raza from Farm Strong Brewing, and of course you've got the Chuckanut. And
Yeah.
they do all the German lagers.
I think the better light beer movement is happening.
Good.
People want something crisp and light, but more flavorful than your average macro lager.
Yeah, it's a tough fight too. Though macro breweries have massive distribution, pricing advantage, marketing.
Ugh, yeah, so much. But the craft breweries, they got one big advantage. I think quality. If you've ever had a craft Helles or Czech style Pilsner, man, I know that you're gonna agree they're better than a Bud Light.
Superior.
Yeah.
Way superior.
Yeah.
The flavor, the just drinking it makes you feel better. I mean, it's just a matter of getting people to try these great craft beers.
Yeah. A little prediction time for the future of lagers. And where do we see the lager market going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Here's my prediction. Craft lagers will continue to grow in popularity, but they will not replace the macro lagers.
I think it's a safe bet. But I do think craft breweries will focus more on lagers than ever before.
I also think that they'll be seeing more high-end lagers. The breweries are focusing on traditional brewing methods, decoction, mashing, longer lagering times, etc.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think we might even see some more hybrid styles. I mean, there's cold IPAs and dry hop Pilsners, barrel-aged lagers. Maybe we'll get to see some hybrid, Saison lagers. Who friggin' knows what they'll come up with.
I like that.
Yeah.
I also like that we'll see more breweries using some unique yeast strains to create lagers so they don't need prolonged cold storage.
Yeah, I think the yeast technology is going to is evolving fast, and if brewers can make lager-like beers without prolonged cold storage, that's a win for small independent breweries. If you're a small producer, it doesn't pay to have your whole production line sit idle for one beer.
Yeah. So to wrap it all up, lagers are back.
Big time. If you're someone who thinks lagers are just boring light beers, you need to try some new ones.
Yeah, go check out craft Pilsners, Czech style Pilsners, even dark lagers. There's a lot more out there than just Bud Light.
And if you're a home brewer, brew a lager. It's going to teach you a lot about patience, precision with your fermentation control, all of the things.
Yeah, lagers aren't just for the past of beers. They're also for the future. Lagers aren't just the past of beers. They're also the future.
Well, that's going to be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for hanging with us. We're just about up to 1,000 downloads.
Thank you all. Yes.
This is episode 18. If you guys weren't listening, we'd have quit doing this a long time ago.
That's right. If you like the show, subscribe, write a review, and make sure you follow us on all of our social medias.
Yeah. Until next time, guys. Cheers.
Socials.
Happy
Cheers.
brewing out there.
Thank you for joining us on
The Beer Craft.